Welcome to the Real Pet Industry News. I'm Clayton. I'm here today with Sam. And what we got this week, Sam?
We are going to talk about the struggling business of Pets at Home. Pets at Home, Clayton, is really struggling. They were lifted by vet services amid weak demand for toys and treats in their latest trading update. They also started a consultation to reduce their workforce by 2,500 people to reduce headcount and be more lean. Britain's biggest pet supplies firm said it was on track to deliver modest growth and that its total turnover relatively flatlined at 361 million in the 12 weeks ending 2nd January. Its total turnover relatively flatlined, and this offset a very strong performance by the veterinary segment, which saw sales soar by 21.3%, thanks to higher number of visits, subscriptions, and average transaction values at their practices. Chancellor Rachel Reeves announced that employers' national insurance rates would go up in April from 13.8% to 15%. The annual salary threshold at which companies start paying NI contributions is also be going to be reduced from £9,000 to £5,000, and Pets at Home is going to take a bit of a hit here of 18 million from these changes in the 2026 financial year. Surprisingly, investor discussions intensified after multiple bid vehicles, including Put Bidco Limited, were registered on February 24. These entities share an address with BC Partners' London office, and their listed director matched the name of Michael Chang, the firm's New York based co head of healthcare. Chang is also linked to BC Partners' investment in US pet retailer PetSmart, fueling further speculation about a potential deal. So, is Pets at Home going private? The share price here has gone nowhere for almost 3 years, and it's almost 7% down in 3 years. So let's talk about five things. We are going to start talking about the challenging retail environment, which is muted or pretty bad in what they say. They don't say it outright, but that's what they mean. What do you think the retail environment is going to be in 2026, not just for Pets at Home, but for the pet industry in retail?
It's interesting actually because I think Pets at Home, I think their heyday was arguably sort of 15, 20 years ago. And the industry's changed a lot since then. And also they've had a lot of strong competitors come in since then. And I don't feel like they've really updated with the times. I think if you look at Pets at Home stores, they're never that busy, but they have a lot of stuff which I would say if you were building out a chain of stores today, you wouldn't have in them as well. So live animals, for example, no retailer should be selling live animals. I don't think in 2025. I think that there could be like you can have the occasional specialist around the place, but I think a standard pet store it isn't the way to go. And I think also look, the market has moved from generalist to more niche over time. So I think like if you look at the US market, I think you're seeing a bigger rise in dog stores, for example, or wild bird food stores rather than generalist pet stores. And I think if you look at the Pets at Home model currently, they're relatively big stores, and I believe there's big chunks of those stores which aren't economically viable. Now, how do they address that is the problem. Because I think when I look at the Pets at Home model, like they've got now the private equity funded Jollies as like a major competitor to them, and I think Jollies do the actual pet store better. And I think that they've been relying for a long time on their veterinary partner, Vets for Pets, to really sort of be the economic sort of winner of their group. But I don't think that's enough, to be honest. And the fact that the people behind PetSmart potentially could come in and take them and go take them private, I think that wouldn't be a bad idea, because they don't seem to have the vision at the moment to actually turn this current model into something more modern. And I don't see anything in the pipeline telling me that it is going to happen, because I talk to people all the time in the industry, and I say to them all the time, look, if I was opening a store tomorrow, I would do a cat specific store, or I would do a dog specific store. I wouldn't bother with hamster food or budgie food or like low quality products. I would just have high quality sort of there's a thing with consumers. I don't know if you ever listen to Rory Sutherland talking, but he says like he has this idea for the bacon sandwich shop, and it's just bacon,
champagne and builder's tea.
Exactly, yeah. So it's that thing where if you do one thing, they think you do it well. And I think if you had let's say a cat only store, and you just did cat products, but you've done everything and you've done it properly, it would be very successful. And I think the same with dog. And I think the day of generalized pet stores in multi locations, because you could take on a storefront which is a half to a third the size of an average Pets at Home, stock it with specific products, get rid of all the waste, the Felixes, etc., and actually do something very, very exciting. And I think that's the way the market would trend nowadays, rather than the sort of generalist model, which is, let's be honest, it goes back to Jim Doherty's PetSmart, which was sort of blew up in the 1970s, 1980s, and I don't think that in 2025 we need that model in every town in the country.
Could they get the volume though? Because when you look at these sales and these volumes, these are huge numbers. So they are competing with B&M, they are competing with garden centres, they are competing with Tesco, Sainsbury's, Morrison's, they are competing with petrol stations. That's what they're competing against. Food is ubiquitous at a certain level. Jollies will have whiskers. They have whiskers. Everyone has whiskers. We don't have whiskers because we hate whiskers. But that's just us. We are a drop in the ocean, as it were. When you get to a certain point, is it viable? Would it be viable for Pets at Home to, as you say, concentrate more on a handful of brands and sell them better?
In my experience with pet stores over the last 30 odd years, the ones that have actually got rid of the whiskers and the Felixes, and even the budgie foods and the live animals and this sort of stuff, have been far more successful, had much higher revenues, because they become like, look at the rise in raw feeding shops across the country. People who have dogs, who want to feed their dogs on a holistic raw food diet, they would much rather go to a raw food specializing shop, which has, and it doesn't just have raw food in it, it'll have kibble in it, etc. But they only have things which they see of being of value to you. Now, if you want to go and buy a £15 bag of dog food, then B&M's is the place for you, and that's not going to change. And look, this is why I talk to pet shops and say that 25 years ago we all sold loads of wild bird food, but now wild bird food primarily sells through discounters like B&M. So realistically, do you want to sell a few bags on the shelf, or would you rather replace that and sell just dog stuff? Because it feels like, look, I always used to say the death knell of any pet shop was when I walked in, they started selling toilet rolls or something like that instead. Something which wasn't, they could sell because people were in there anyway. But like the moment you start doing that, you become less of an authority on what you're selling, Whereas if you have, let's say, a cat specific school with staff that are trained in just cat hygiene, cat like nutrition, etc., etc. If you had a cat, you'd go there. Or if you're a grocery customer, you go grocery. I think again, pet stores in like the broader sense are still a little bit 1990s really, and I think that the model is changing. And I feel like Pets at Home are further behind that model than their competitors, because if you go into a Jolly's, you won't very often see them selling birds and hamsters and stuff in store, whereas you will see that with a Pets at Home.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that. I mean, competition is definitely chipping away at their business model, and Jollies is the name that springs to mind here in the UK. I mean, they are very, very active on social media, on LinkedIn. They are very vociferous about opening new stores, and they seem to be quite aggressive as well with their Facebook ads and sponsored posts and what have you. And they seem to be amazing. They seem to be doing incredibly well. And yes, as you say, the model is slightly different, but it's similar. It is similar. You can see the similarities. So who's telling fibs here? Is Pets at Home? Pets at Home say they are operating in a challenging environment? Jollies say they are knocking it out of the park. Who's telling fibs? Is it somewhere in between? Is it because Jollies is working from a lower base, they are growing a bit faster, and Pets at Home is struggling to grow because they have probably maybe gone as far as they are going to go in terms of their total addressable market? What do you think?
I think once you saturate the market with stores, it's very hard to grow. And I think Jollies, it's easy for them to show a year on year growth, because if you're opening 20, 30 stores a year, it's just like 10% more stores, then you're going to have at least 10% more revenue. And even if you have 8% more revenue, you don't have to mention the fact you've got 10% more stores, do you? So um, I think the truth is somewhere in between. I think Jollies have got um, a better range than Pets at Home, in my opinion. I think Pets at Home are more in the past. I think as a consumer, Jolly's prices are better. When I go into Jolly's, I don't feel aggrieved paying their prices. I feel aggrieved in Pets at Home a lot of the time, if I'm honest. I feel their staff are less aggressive at selling their own brands than the Pets at Home people. And like, yeah, so I think the Jollies are a better in a better state currently than Pets at Home, and then you combine the fact that Pets at Home are pretty much saturating their pet store market. And the other thing is, I think their stores are too big. I think the cost of running those stores, when you take how many deadlines are in those stores, or like just whole segments that don't actually warrant the higher value locationing they have. I think it's a very hard model to change. And so, which is why Pets at Home are so aggressive about getting exclusive distribution for certain brands, because that's the only thing that keeps them in the game, to be honest.
In the eyes of people who are starting brands and who want to distribute their product, Pets at Home seems to be the number one place people want to flock to. They want to flock to Pets at Home first, and then everything else takes a backseat. So, is that going to change? Do you think in the near future, whereby I mean, I've heard you speak about this multiple times, and this is the Canagan business model, whereby you only supply independents, and that's the way you think it can be done. You only supply independents, and all your marketing spend is basically zero, because the independents, we are very fierce and we are, pretty vocal, and we do the marketing for you. And as long as you don't screw us over, we will do the marketing for you. We will sell your product for you. Whereas with Pets at Home, you are going to sit down with a bunch of very elegantly dressed people, and you are going to set the price at the price they want to set you the price at. So you are going to have a lot less wiggle room in terms of gross margin and distribution. They are going to probably expect you to hit certain KPIs. You are going to be, um, um, uh, they are going to be your boss. What do you think about this? Is this going to change? Does this still make sense for business owners to sell through Pets at Home, or try to sell to for from Pets at Home primarily?
I think the problem is, and I think this is going to continue to be the issue, is that if you talk to a company which is investor led, let's say, so you've got external funding from VCs or angel investors or private equity or anything like this. So I'm a brand, and I have, let's say, I'm looking at my strategy going forward for the next 1 to 5 years, right? Part of that strategy will have to have Pets at Home retailing your stuff. And the main reason that is the case is because an average VC or an average investor, to them, that is the golden goose of you've made it. If I'm in Pets at Home, it's a bit like I produce a new drill, I want it in B&Q. If I produce a dog food brand, I'm in Pets at Home, I've made it somehow because I'm in the biggest of the big throughout the country. And it's the one set of name recognition that everybody gets. The reality is that for brands, a much safer, much more effective long-term approach is to go through the Canagan model and to actually sell it through independents. But the difference is that I can get one meeting with Pets at Home, go up to their headquarters in the northwest, do my pitch, lovely. You're in X amount of 100 stores overnight. I suddenly have, like, my business goes from 0 to 100. Whereas if I want to do that for independents, I have to go and meet, 100, 200 people like you, Sam, sit down, convince you of it, sell you it, tell you why I'm going to support you, convince you why you should find space on your shelf for it. And let's be honest, it's not hard. It's hard. It's time consuming. It requires having good salespeople, being very, very clear on your products, being able to deal with a wide range of questions, whether that be on the nutrition base of your product, who you're really aiming at, how you're going to support people, why you're not going to go into X, Y, and Z channels. Like, it's a much, much harder ask. But the difference is that then becomes a business which has got like a solid base on it for a long time. But that's not how investors look at things. If investors look at it like it's just purely numbers. If you can get the numbers tomorrow, if I'm a VC, I invest into you because I want to go from 0 to 100. I want to go, you have a product. I want you to take that from 0 to 10 million a year turnover. Let's exit in 3 years' time for 10x what I've put in. That's the perfect scenario for me. And for me, in my head, that doesn't happen without Pets at Home. But you can also do that, get into Pets at Home. 3 years' time, they've got another competitor, you're out the door, and then you're like out with your cap in hand looking for other people or selling D2C off your website, and your business is in ruins. So I don't see it changing in the same way I don't see people not like spending fortunes on Facebook's ad changing, because if you dump 100 grand in marketing onto my lap, I can either spend the next year going from show to show to show, meeting hundreds of people, or I can just spend it on Facebook ads, and okay, the return's not as good, but goddamn, it's wet out there, and I can do that on my laptop, as opposed to actually, getting out, getting dirty, hurting my knees, putting up stands, getting a little bit of abuse here and there. So, do you know what I mean? But the difference is one thing works in the long term, the other thing is an immediate return, which your investors can see, and they can pump more money into you. So it's a different kind of economy. And unfortunately, businesses don't operate like they used to. It's not like when I started and we make money, we reinvest it. We make money, we reinvest it. Oh my God, we bought a load of stuff that doesn't sell. We're almost in tears. We're just trying to get anything back on it so we can reinvest that into the next product line. That's not how things work. Now it's like, yeah, we just had a raise. We just raised £500,000 quid. We're going to spend 200 grand on marketing. We're going to have a social media marketing executive on 40 grand a year who's going to produce pictures which have no distinguishable economic value. And yeah, but we got into Pets at Home. So hey, do you know what I mean? And that's the way things are now, unfortunately.
That's the way things are. And I mean, the one observation I have been making is that, I mean, everyone in the pet industry, I mean, most industries, but most people in the pet industry advertise through Facebook, Google, and so those companies keep getting bigger and bigger. And so Mark Zuckerberg and your Alphabets and Bezos keep on raking in the money, because all advertising pounds and dollars go to them. They really go to them. There are basically two, three substantial places where you can advertise, and so there's millions and millions of pounds going into these companies, and so that's something I've been munching over, really. Anyway, this podcast is brought to you by Pet Business Disruptors, which tackles everything practical you need to know to succeed in the pet industry. That's Clayton's podcast, and you can get it wherever you get your podcast from. We are also sponsored by Dog and Cat Nutrition. That's my YouTube channel. Please do us a favor and like and subscribe to our channels so the mighty algorithm befriends us. Also, if you are an investor and wish to partner with us, listen up. Me and Clayton have a bunch of exciting ideas that require capital to succeed. We have the ideas, the know how, and are hungry for success. So, if you have a passion for pets and, like us, want to make a dent into the pet business, contact us via LinkedIn. Capital at Risk. Let's talk about very, very briefly that vet services being up, because that's something that's offset their poor performance or muted performance on the retail side. Their veterinary services in the UK seem to be on fire. Absolutely on fire. If you have a vet, you are literally clapping with your ears right now. What is your take?
I mean, look, the Pets at Home, Vets for Pets model has been incredibly successful. And I think, look, one thing I say they really get right, Vets for Pets, is they are a 7 days a week property. Whereas if you look at a lot of the older fashioned independent vets, they're Monday to Friday with we open for like 2 hours on a Saturday, but your dog better be like, fitting on the floor if you want to come in. Whereas they're open on a Sunday. You can call them up Sunday morning, go down and see them, and you're not paying for an emergency vet. They're pretty reasonable price wise. I mean, they're not. I mean, it's still not a joy to spend your money there, but it's not. It's not as like eye watering as it could be. And I think, like, look, just as a prospect, I think Vets for Pets are very good economic prospects for both the company and for the consumer. I think I have my reservations around some of them, that I don't think that maybe they're as good as a lot of vets, like quality wise, but for standard things. I mean, look, I'm registered at Vets for Pets. I'm also registered at a vets that used to be independent but now is owned by a chain. If I've got something seriously wrong, I will take it to my independent, which is now part of a chain, rather than Vets for Pets. But I'll be honest, if it's something like an infection, or my dog cuts its leg and it's something which is, it just needs the attention, but it's not crazy, I'll go to Vets for Pets. Especially if it's at the weekend, like I can phone them up on the Sunday morning and say, have you got an appointment? And they'll say, yeah, come in at 1 or something. I mean, it's blinding. So I think, like, in terms of a consumer entity, I think they're very good. But yeah, I mean, I can see why it's so successful for them, to be honest, because I do think that they've taken a price-driven approach at it.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, what could they gain from going private? I mean, where there's smoke, there's fire. And so there is probably a good prospect of talks here of Pets at Home going private. I mean, what is equity going to do? Let me tell you what they're going to do, right? They are going to asset strip as much as possible. They are going to lean the business. They are going to probably stop selling live animals, as you said, which is something they should do, because we don't sell live animals, because if a Hmong comes through the door and I don't want to sell them a hamster, I don't want to sell them a hamster. And so I don't want to get into that awkward conversation whereby I don't sell live animals because I don't really know you and I don't trust you. So that's something they probably should stop doing. And then probably they are going to invest a little bit into the whole operations. They are going to freshen up the whole thing, and they are going to exit 3 to 5 years later, and it's probably not going to be looked after as well after the 3 to 5 years after private equity makes a profit. Am I wrong? What am I not getting here?
Yeah, I think that if it goes private, it takes it from the stock exchange. It's not in a. It's not looking like it's ever going to get better. I think the share prices, and I think the stock exchange hates the concept of an overhaul, which has like questionability behind it. So if they do that while they're actually listed, that could crash the stock price, and then that would open them up to a fire sale. So for them, it would be better to buy the shares back, take it back private, rip it to pieces, and put it back together. Maybe break it up. Maybe sell the Vets for Pets chain off, and then do something with the Pets at Home side. And like that could be as simple as getting a Pets at Home top man in a PetSmart top man and to redo it. Because look, PetSmart, they've got the successful online through Chewy in America. There's loads of like animal specific stores across the US. There's lots of things they can do, and I think you look at Pets at Home and you think it is legacy, but it is like wearing out. So I think taking it off the public exchange wouldn't be a bad idea.
Would you break up the two segments, or a segment? I mean, would you break up the veterinary services? You are seeing Unilever, for example, try to get rid of Ben and Jerry's. Because apparently they consume too much electricity. About 15% of the whole group was spent on electricity and distribution for Unilever, for Ben and Jerry's. Sorry, and so could Mars or one of these big chains buy up the veterinary services? Would you keep the retailer? Would you overhaul the e-commerce? Because that's a business in and of itself. Like you say, Chewy has a pretty sizable chunk of the market in America, and that's a standalone business. So they essentially have 3 to 4 businesses. They have the stores, they have the veterinary group, they have the groomers in store, and they have the live animals. So any of these, I mean, would you sell your crown jewel, which is your veterinary, vets for pets?
Well, you wouldn't necessarily you wouldn't even necessarily need to sell it as such. You just, by breaking it up, it could make Vets for Pets a much more profitable entity on its own, and make it almost as valuable, if not more valuable, than the whole chain as it is at the moment. Because what we don't know is how profitable or unprofitable a lot of these stores are, the Pets at Home stores are. So it could be that it gives them an opportunity, if they broke it to pieces, to actually make it worth more than the sum of its parts, if that makes sense. So take the Vets for Pets, make it its own business, IPO that separately, and that could be as valuable potentially as Pets at Home. And then Pets at Home, you completely tear it to pieces and bring it into the 21st century, and then you actually could have something there which is quite valuable afterwards as well. So I think there's a lot you can do, and I think that in its current position, they're missing a trick, because I think the Vets for Pets chain could go away and just become bigger and bigger and bigger. It could buy out one of the other chains conglomerate that, become, buy Medivet or buy, more independence, and actually just get bigger and bigger and actually become not so much of a Pets at Home brand and actually have its own thing going on. And then Pets at Home can then just, focus on becoming a profitable business, like a Jollies, and compete in that arena more effectively. But then they'll still have the high value of the Vets for Pets chain, which they could IPO and actually, dominate that market with separately. So I think there's a lot you could do. I I wouldn't necessarily say like sell Vets for Pets to fund Pets at Home. It could almost be, break it up into the sum of its parts, because it could have more value that way.
Fair enough. What can they do to grow their business? My ideas around this would be to invest in other businesses. I believe they did this with Bella and Duke. I think, if I'm not mistaken, they took a stake or they participated in a certain seed round or a round for Bella and Duke. And so, if I am their development team and I want to grow the business, I would probably try to back business owners or try to gobble up all the pet foods or the treats. So I would probably try to embed myself a little bit more into my supply chain. Maybe buy a pet manufacturer. I don't know. I would probably try to do something like that. I would give ChatGPT a prompt and see how I can make an asset light business for the pet industry, like all about dog food, for example, a portal. I don't know. I'd create my own raw dog food, or I don't know. What could they do to grow their business?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there is any link, like, financially between them and Bella and Duke. Just to clarify, I'm not sure if that is a thing or not. But I do agree that, like, yeah, that doing things like that is an interesting way of looking at it. I mean, for me, like, for them just to improve their business, um, buying companies is always a good way. So if they were to buy a Bella and Duke, or let's say have like a controlling stake in them, so a bit like how Pets Corner aligned up with We Pet, but I don't know what the link is between them and Canagan, the Canagan group, but there is some kind of link there. Now it could just be one owner over here and one over there, but I think I think there is, like, there's ways you can do it where they don't necessarily, the brands don't necessarily, like, are problematic against each other, but they can all run as like a unified whole. So I do think having more of a We Pet model would be a good thing for Pets at Home, where you actually have more a range of brands, which you could buy those brands, or you can create those brands, or if they were to buy a controlling stake in Bella and Duke, that wouldn't be a bad way of doing it. Just to sort of flesh out how they go forward, because I think that the Wainwright's brand, which is the kind of brand they push in store, it's not that exciting, to be honest. It's kind of it's not great. Whereas Pets Corner, they've got like a great range of own brands, to be honest. Like Yora used to be before it was transferred into Canagan, and a lot of their brands they then push out through the independent trade through We Pet. So they've got quite a smart way of doing it. So I think something along them lines, and if you take distributorships for different countries, because they definitely seem to have some kind of agreement in place where they won't touch Fresh Snap's territory and Fresh Snaps won't touch their territory. So working more in touch with companies like that might be more effective as well.
I mean, retail is a very simple business at its core. You try to buy in bulk and you try to negotiate prices, and then you try to push your gross margins up as much as possible. And that's why you have conversations with your suppliers, like Costco do. They get in these meetings and they analyze line by line where the costs are. And so I do not believe that they aren't already negotiating the best terms and conditions for their purchases. So that's probably one that we can be assured that they are doing. The other thing they aren't doing, I would imagine, is, as you say, revamping or rebranding AVA and Wainwright's, which do not look very good. AVA looks a lot better than Wainwright's, but still, it doesn't really. It's a bit of a crossover between Royal Canin and a regular food, but it's nor one nor the other. Neither one nor the other.
Yeah, I mean, no, like, I agree. It's that they need, the whole thing needs revamping. And like I say, I do think that buying their suppliers out necessarily wouldn't cut it, but I do think looking to upcoming brands to put money into them might be a way of doing it. I mean, you look at almost like a Dragon's Den style pitch. Like when brands come to them, they offer to buy chunks out of them, I guess would be a part of a deal, and they offer to put them through their stores. It's difficult because how many truly innovative brands are there out there? That's always the other problem, isn't it? And I think that Pets at Home, they have their reach everywhere. They know all the factories. There's nowhere I could go, like dog food wise, and make something much different to them, and get the distribution they've got. The only thing that most people have over them is the ability to innovate, how to sell products, and I think that's probably where they're weak. I mean, you won't see a Wainwright stand at Crufts, or you won't see a dog show. You won't see them at a dog fest or something like that. They don't treat themselves like brands, even though they've got brands. So I think that's really where they would need to step up, is actually making those brands like less of a sort of like a Tesco's brand, like was it Stockwell beans or something, to a Heinz. Do you know what I mean? Actually putting the effort in, getting it into the zeitgeist more generally, rather than just having it as their own specific brand, which you can only buy in their stores.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, white labeling does work. I mean, if you go abroad, Carrefour or whatever you call it, and they have amazing own brands. You have M&S in this country. They have amazing own brands. Lidl, Aldi, they do it really, really well. You have Mercadona in Spain. They have incredible own brands, but they do it very, very well. And I think that's a skill in and of itself. But yeah, we shall wait and see.
But I do think though, when it comes to like a Lidl's brand, like if you've got like, I don't know, Gusto or whatever it is their brand is, of whatever. I do think that like people are still aware it's a Lidl brand, and they don't buy into the brand in the same way they will buy into a Canigan, let's say. And I think that's the thing, is that Wainwright's is kind of in that sort of mode. And I think, like, let's say, Jolly's, McIntyre, what do they call it? Their own brand, Life Stage, and that sort of stuff.
Life Stage.
Yeah, people don't look at that and go, "Oh, well, this is a wonderful brand which I can get everywhere." I think that they're pretty used to the sort of Lidl, Aldi experience now. So people have a different sort of regards for brands, and so if they want to move that to the next level, like Pets Corner have, and actually develop brands which can go into other channels, which then make them more respected in a sense. So the fact that you can buy Eura in an independent pet store, or you can buy some of their other products in independent pet stores, it gives their products a different set of credence when you walk into a Pets Corner. And I think that is definitely something they should be looking to go down.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if anyone from Pets at Home is watching this or listening to this, you should probably hire Clayton, and pay him an awful lot of money. He'll tell you what to do with the business, and he'll actually work, because he has all the knowledge.
£20 a week. £20 a week they'll offer me.
Well, there you go. Thank you so much for listening. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, mate.